Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, cannabis farmers Dylan Mattole and John Casali join us in studio to talk about the state of their industry and to help frame the debate over an upcoming initiative in a way that they say is more appropriate to the times. Also, the city of Eureka is looking to sell 3 properties on the waterfront as a way of addressing the city's affordable housing crunch. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for watching. In preparation for tonight's show, I had a conversation with one of our guests, Dylan Mattole, about how the cannabis industry fares right now and how he believes recent efforts to limit large-scale legal grows is a solution in search of a problem. He posits that the impacts of the so-called green rush years ago, when farmers could be witnessed in the co-op and elsewhere sporting huge wads of cash and driving massive pickup trucks, are partly to blame. At a time when the rest of Humboldt County's economy was dismal, such demonstrations and other issues led to trauma on the part of the community. And this lingering trauma has impacted how people view the industry now. We've been inundated with stories recently talking about the difficulties facing cannabis farmers. But accentuating that hardship is not really the point, he told me. Given a fair playing field and a just set of rules, the farmers will be fine. But in taking up an initiative, any initiative, it's always an absolute necessity to consider the outright unintended consequences from such proposals that could actually make things much worse for the county as a whole. While we've done a couple of shows now on this issue, I want to dive a little deeper because although diminished, cannabis remains a massively significant economic engine for Humboldt County, and much of the county's plans for future prosperity realistically have to involve our most famous export. For those interested in hearing the other side, you can find last year's July 22nd episode of Headline Humboldt on YouTube, where I interview initiative proponents Betsy Watson and Mark Thurman. I've also extended an invitation to proponents asking them to return to the studio once again and address the concerns raised by farmers and others. Joining us in studio now are 2 guests we've had on the show before at different times, John Casali and Dylan Mattole. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, if you guys could first introduce yourselves, tell us who you are and how you got, or not how you got involved in the business, but what you do in the cannabis industry and why you're a representative of it.
My name is Dylan Mattole, and I live in the Honeydew area of the Mattole Valley. I'm a second generation, born and raised in Humboldt County. I have 3 kids. They've been here their whole lives, and we are a small family farm. We are members of our community. We are very active in our community, and we, as far as the farm goes, we have a 1-acre licensed outdoor cultivation. We implement regenerative farming practices, organic. We have multiple certifications for wildlife conscientious conservation, among other things, and that's kind of who we are. I also chair the board of the Humboldt County Growers Alliance.
Okay. And John?
Yeah, thanks, James. My name's Johnny Casali. I'm also a second generation cannabis farmer, still living on the same piece of property I grew up on 50 years ago. So, we have 3 different license types there. We have a nursery license that consists of 5 different plants. We have one of 3 different tourism license that was given to us by the county. And we also have a 5,000 square foot cultivation outdoor license. We've been working for the last several years with the different departments throughout California to try to build bridges with Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Water Board, the county itself, and really educate them on what we need to do together to make this whole thing work. So as we build this ship, we're going through some ups and downs and figuring out ways to compete with the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mentioned the conversation that we had a couple days ago in the introduction. Could we talk a little bit about that to frame the conversation? What did you mean by the sort of pre-existing trauma that might exist in the community? I know that there's trauma on both sides. I mean, like John, your story, which you've told on air here before, is really impactful about what the experience is like to be on the offender's side in a major operation like a camp, helicopter raid, and all that. So there's trauma all around. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think it's like with any war. You have trauma with those that are involved in the war, as far as if you're looking at an actual war with the soldiers. this was the war on drugs, and so it came into the communities, and there was an effect on the growers, and there was also an effect on those that weren't growing, and as the war on drugs kind of progressed, and we came into the era of 215, that kind of birthed what we call the Green Rush days. And, it was an impact to the communities, and it wasn't all positive, although there was a lot of positive that came out of it. There was massive economic benefit to everybody in Humboldt County through that Green Rush.
Yeah, if someone spends their cash, it's going to benefit businesses. Right?
Of course, but I think it's also it's important that we acknowledge that that there were a lot of negative effects. There was no regulation, so there were impacts to the watersheds. There was out-of-state operators and frankly in-state operators who were not using best management practices by any means. And so, we saw a lot of destruction and big hilltop grows and really just not the best operations. So as a result of legalization, what has happened is regulation has really stepped in and addressed these issues. And that's kind of where we're at today. So I think it's fair to acknowledge that there were concerns and that people probably have a lot of memories of these bad times. I think what's not appropriate is to take that and transfer it to those of us that chose to come into this regulated industry and have for years now worked through a public process and with all the different agencies Johnny mentioned that we all work with to become compliant and to be good operators, and then to now be faced with kind of having the things of the past thrown in our face to try to shut us down today, frankly, is a bit offensive.
Yeah. So, let's get to that. The Cannabis Reform Initiative is this idea that's being pitched. It's going to go before voters. It has a lot of different, proposals in it, and we'll get to some of those. But, overall, what's your guys' reaction to the rules that they're trying to enact? We talked a little bit before, and it seems like almost that they are trying to, punish growers now for the mistakes of the past. You see it that way, obviously.
First of all, I would suggest everybody read it, and then I would also suggest that
you can find it at where did I do with that? Can be found at cannabisinitiative.org. Please read it.
And then I would also recommend that you read the 27-page analysis that Humboldt County Building and Planning did. And what you find in the county's analysis, which is really kind of at the crux of it, is that with an initiative like this, if it were passed by voters, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. So what you see in the words must be implemented by the agency. Yeah. So Humboldt Building and Planning Department really outlines a lot of confusion that they find in it. There's no room for, it's not healthy to just leave these things up for interpretation, because as confused as we farmers may be about it, the planning department will also have to deal with that. And so some of the immediate concerns that we see in it is a requirement for any farm that's over 3,000 square feet to be considered non-conforming if it's not on a Category 4 road.
So can you define for us what a Category 4 road is?
Well, Category 4 road is a road, I forget the specific definition, but it's basically
a
more developed road with passing lanes and such. And the majority of the roads out in the hills are not Category 4 roads. So that in itself would ultimately probably put 75, 80, maybe 90% of the farms that are in Humboldt County out of business right now, because they would not have the funds to bring up the miles and miles of road. And there's an environmental impact to that as well. We're talking like bulldozing little roads, which have already been inspected by Fish and Wildlife, the building department. We all have wastewater discharge agreements with the Department of with the water board. Mm-hmm. So we are all, these roads have already all been looked at and deemed okay for the operations sized on them. Yeah. So there's a lot of things in there. 1 permit per farm only is what it says.
Which would affect John, because you just mentioned he had 3 different permits.
Can you let me talk?
Do I.
Am I going to talk, or are you going to? No, so he makes a good point, and this is where I can chime in, and this is kind of my area, is, I'm a small family farm with 3 different permits, and I wasn't able to survive on 5,000 square feet of sun-grown craft cannabis in today's marketplace. They're still permitting farms in the state of California, and the oversaturation is affecting us all. And so I've added a nursery license, which I grow 5 plants that I produce seeds, and I'm able to sell those on the open market. And then I also have one of 3 tourism permits that has been issued in Humboldt County. And so I'm able to take people from all over the world and share stories about the Back to the Land movement, about growing up with my mom and taking care of the plants, and really putting the environment first, and how a lot of us are amazing stewards of the land. We all have many different certifications. My farm in particular has 4 different certifications. I'm Sun and Earth certified, I'm Fish Friendly certified, I'm Compliant Farm certified, Cannabis for Conservancy certified. As Dylan also is a farm that has many different certifications, and that's something we're proud of. That's something we were kind of trying to distinguish our farms from corporate, farms, and really let people's values align with ours and have them support us because of those things. In defense of Betsy and Mark in their misunderstanding of this initiative, it's confusing. It was confusing to all of us, and it was scary at the beginning. And we were building something that none of us really understood, and we didn't know if it was going to be a glass house situation where it was 5.5 million square feet grows coming into our beautiful landscape. And really, to the counties, the way they've worked, the way they've figured it out, they built this as we went along, and they're really doing a good job in weeding out the bad actors, really uplifting the good actors. And like, it took me 1.5 years to get a tourism license, so it wasn't easy to do any of this. And I think there was just a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding was relayed to the people that ended up signing it.
Yeah.
This initiative will get rid of my farm. I will no longer be able to participate in it. I've been doing the same thing for 50 years.
Now, we talked a little bit about the process that they underwent in order to get to this point in terms of the permitting process and whatnot. You mentioned that there was a version of the ordinance that had problems with it, and then there was a robust public interaction and process, and that developed into a 2.0 version that is a lot more effective. There are a lot of underlying assumptions that are sort of made in the initiative. I'm going to run a few of them by you just to get your guys' reactions. One of the things that they say is that the amount of acreage under cultivation right now in Humboldt County threatens the community and the environment. Would you say that's accurate?
And I would say that is absolutely not accurate. The amount of total cultivation in the county is around 400 acres. That is I think I've heard, roughly it's less than 1% of the available ag land in Humboldt County. It's really a very small amount. So while some people may live in a neighborhood where they visually see it, because a lot of what we're talking about is greenhouses, when you look at the cumulative amount of greenhouses and cultivation of all types throughout Humboldt County, it is not only very small, it is incredibly decreased from where we started. The estimates of pre-permitting were around 13, 14, some say as high as 15,000 independent grow sites in Humboldt County, and we're now down to less than 2,500.
Yeah.
So, when you look at that impact, this assertion that is made is that it's expanding. It's actually the opposite. I just spoke with the building department today, and they currently have 0 new applications on the table.
Wow.
There are none. And we have farms every day both walking away from their licenses and then following them, which is just putting them inactive. So it's actually quite the opposite. We've seen an incredible reduction of grow since permitting. What has happened, and what leads to some of this, is that some of the grows have, at the instruction of the ordinance and with the input of public process, been moved out of the hills and onto prime ag. So sometimes it is more visual.
Yeah, But that's, I mean, that allows for increased inspection and more transparency, right? I mean,
that was the idea. Well, and also lower environmental impact.
Yeah. One of the things that people have been, and that has been claimed is that there is an explosion of these like large corporate unaccountable grows, and we just had this conversation. But if you guys could go over that again, how is that? I mean, that's demonstrably not true. You say, right?
Well, if we're speaking just of Humboldt County, I think it's not true. I think if you're talking about the state of California, which we're directly competing with, I think maybe that is true in Salinas County, LA County, and those southern counties where they're growing on flatlands. But we have something different here. We have something special. We are about small, sun-grown craft cannabis. We're the Napa Valley of wine here. We already have this amazing name, and we need to really market and brand what we have to be something amazing that could help this whole community in a whole. So I think we're really just honing in what we have and really demonstrating to the people around us that we have something really special.
Yeah. So now, how is it for you guys as growers? I mean, the evolution that you've undergone over the past several years from being farmers to being, astute and brand-minded business people, and now you're entering the political realm because you have to, fight this initiative, and you have to go out and talk with media and try to sway public opinion. I wonder, is this what you thought you'd be doing when you decided you wanted to grow marijuana? And what do you think about this sort of demand that you have to get this extra skill set? Is it worth it?
I think that, what we've all become is our own advocates, and so, that does push us into the political realm at times, and when we face initiatives and attacks, if you will, like this, we have to deal with it. There's nobody else that's going to come to our defense. So it's been a learning curve. I think that the idea, or maybe the past thought that us growers in general, because most of us have been doing this for a long time, we're just a bunch of fools, that I think that actually never was accurate, and that most cannabis farmers have always been, pretty intelligent, smart, sophisticated business folks.
Yeah.
And so now we're out in the daylight, and that's coming to light, and I don't think it should really be that shocking to people that all of us who were running these successful businesses in the past are still doing that. Yeah. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work when you're trying to run a business and simultaneously do advocacy, state level, county level, and everything else we have to do.
Are you guys effectively plugged in as an industry now? I mean, you have HCGA as an organization to sort of help, but could you do better at that sort of consolidation, or?
Well, realistically, for my farm, it's just my girlfriend and I that run the farm, and so there's only so much time in a day. So we really count on an HCGA, an MCA, and without them to deal with issues with the state, it would be like a runaway train. I mean, this initiative for me, keeps me up at night, thinking that after all that we've overcome to now at the 9th hour to deal with this, it just really makes me sick, because all I really want to do is come out of the darkness and into the light, and really just share my family's legacy and what we're about as a community, and contribute to the community, help build the roads, help build our schools and our fire departments and our technical rescue. We just want to be part of the community, and unfortunately there seems like there's a big divide between the north part of the county and the south part of the county, and the supervisors in the county need to work harder on making us all feel like one. We all need to get along, and we all need to work together and really highlight the special things that we have to offer here.
Can I ask what the divide that you're perceiving there is between north and south?
It just always feels to me that there's some kind of resentment of the days that we operated illegally and we supposedly didn't pay taxes, and I totally agree. There was a lot of bad actors in, and I personally did some things that I wasn't ever proud of. But people make amends for some of the mistakes that they had made in the past, and we're the ones that are here today that are operating in the legal market really want to put their best forward. We're saying we're sorry for what we did. In a roundabout way, we're apologizing, becoming legal permitted farms, and we want to really now contribute. So a lot of it was our fault, but we have to all meet in the middle here and really contribute.
In the interest of honesty and a frank appraisal of the situation, while all that is true, I think also, what marijuana or cannabis has done for our economy as a whole has never really been calculated, but the numbers are astounding. Mendocino back in 2008 said it was $100 million that was flowing through their county just from the illicit cannabis industry. I think that number probably has gone up. Maybe it's going down now because of the efficiencies and the tightening that have gone on, but it's an absolute staple and anchor of our economy, and to pretend otherwise is a fool's errand at this point.
So, I always like to look at things in the positive light, but, as we're seeing these Humboldt County suffer right now, we really haven't seen anything yet. If this initiative passes because of a misunderstanding, it will devastate this county, because it won't just affect these farmers that she's talking about or they're talking about. It will affect every other ancillary business, the processors, the manufacturers, the distributors, all the grocery stores. It will be devastating. I just can't even believe that this is actually happening now, but we're here to deal with it now, and we're here to meet the northern part of the county halfway.
Yeah. Southern Humboldt in particular has been hit hard by the dip in the economy. Any further losses of cash flow would be catastrophic, right?
Yeah, you drive through Garberville and 50% of the storefronts are closed, and it's really hard to see your family and your friends calling you and suffering and not being able to sell their properties at this point. And it's no blame to the northern part of the county. It's something that we all need to deal with, and we have an opportunity here to make something magical similar to what Napa has, but with the cannabis industry. Yeah. And there's a lot more. There's the redwoods, there's the fishing, there's the logging, there's all these other things that we can incorporate into the beautiful thing that we have here in Humboldt County.
Yeah. What would you guys need as an industry to sort of make that dream real?
About 50 million.
Well, that's an easy number, so let's get on the horn. Yeah. But
part of it. Well, what we need if we could just reach out through the airwaves and convince our county, the rest of our citizens.
It all starts somewhere, right?
Yeah, it starts somewhere, and that's why Johnny and I are here, and that's why we always put ourselves out there. What we want is, what we're trying to build is nothing really that unusual. We just want to be part of the economy, and what we ask for is for the rest of the citizens to understand that we're rural landowners who believe in working lands. We believe that there is a balance with people living in the hills and people living in town. And part of what Humboldt County has always been is people out in the hills doing things. This is an agricultural resource county.
Absolutely.
And we're kind of, we still have a timber industry, we still have fishing, and we still have ranching. These are active things that have not completely died out, but we're part of that. And what we want is just to be normalized and accepted. And we would like to see our county really step up and market what we have, and as Johnny mentions, treat us like they treat Napa, and actually invest in us and see us as partners in this economy and these communities, and not continue to look at us as these outlaws that are trying to break the rules, because that's just not the case with the folks that we're talking about with this initiative. It clearly states, and even on the website of the initiative itself, that this has nothing to do with the illicit market.
Yeah.
This is not about that. This is strictly about those of us who are operating in the legal market.
And again, in Betsy and Mark's defense, I think this initiative was written not truly understanding the repercussions of what it was going to do and how it was going to affect us.
Which is often the case with initiatives.
And now that it's in place, and now that it's been voted on, we're in a really weird
to the voters, yeah.
Put forward to the voters, we're in a really awkward situation, and we're just trying to let people understand. We're not trying to convince people to sway them one way or the other. We're just trying to understand what the effects of this initiative would have on this whole community.
We are out of time, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, Hi, I'm Chef Patty Hinich. It is a pleasure to show you the wonderful food and culture of Mexico all these years. Show your love for public television by becoming a sustaining member of your local public TV station. Watch episodes of Patty's Mexican Table and other favorite shows anytime with Passport on the PBS Video app.
These particular properties are on the edge of just being blight. They detract from our waterfront, they detract from our boardwalk, so turning them into housing, which is desperately needed, seems to me to be an incredibly sensible proposal.
The Eureka City Council is selling 3 properties between C and F Streets. A dirt parking lot currently blankets the historic location of the Booner Warehouse, a fish packing plant, a saloon, stores, and apartments. Now the city is asking developers to help meet state housing goals by building at least 95 very low-income apartments.
95 units, that's about, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 40 units an acre, which is a pretty high development for our type of area, which was like, what else is the boardwalk going to be if we're doing this to it?
There's going to be mixed-use structures, probably not covering all 3 of the lots entirely, but with green space and open space and housing above various kinds of mixed uses, not just retail.
Anything built too tall right next to the boardwalk will shade it for significant portions of the year, and it'll be really cold. Any design we always had seen or had considered was like, very low next to the boardwalk to make sure that there's unobstructed view.
At this Tuesday's meeting, the City Council will incorporate public comments into a request for proposals. The city will then sell or lease the properties to developers who respond to the RFP with pitched projects that conform to the public and City Council's vision. Accusations of abuse have reportedly been leveled against Cal Poly Humboldt head basketball coach Ty Norwood. The allegations surfaced this week in a Time-Standard article by reporter Jake Matson. Several team members are cited as alleging they were misled by recruiters, made to practice long hours against NCAA rules, and abused both verbally and emotionally by the head coach. Cal Poly Humboldt released a statement this week saying that the university has broadened its investigation into reports of mistreatment of players, as well as other misconduct within its intercollegiate men's basketball program. Among other steps, an outside firm has been retained to carry out an independent investigation, the statement read. Norwood has had a rocky tenure as coach. In October of 2020, Norwood was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence by the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office in Arcata. At the time, Norwood said he'd learned from his mistakes. Quote, "I would genuinely appreciate the opportunity to have a second chance to learn from my actions," Norwood said at the time. "This experience will unequivocally help me become a better man, role model, and coach." That's it for this week. Happy Cesar Chavez Day. Stay tuned. Stay informed.